Hi, this is Fred Barstein with 401k TV, and we're lucky enough to have David Levine from the Groom Law Group sitting in his office in Washington, starting our series about helping plan sponsors to fulfill their fiduciary responsibilities when running their defined contribution plan. So welcome, David.
Thank you, Fred.
So we thought we would start at the beginning. What are the two basics that a plan sponsor has to know about fulfilling their fiduciary responsibilities? What are those two duties?
Sure. There's sort of a there's a million different ways to frame this, but two basic concepts are being prudent and loyal, and oftentimes in English that gets into what is appropriate for people to have in terms of investments and service providers, and also having the right level of fees. That's sort of two core issues people often focus on at this point.
And so the whole issue of making sure that fees are reasonable, that seems to have spawned a whole rash of lawsuits against 401k plans and 403b. Can you just sort of basically, what are the underpinnings? What are the theories going into those lawsuits?
Sure. The theories of these lawsuits, I like to always say it's a 20/20 hindsight type of lawsuit. What the plaintiffs come along and say is you could have gone cheaper on investments, and cheaper, we'll talk about in a minute, is not the only factor, but that's what the plaintiffs focus on. You could have gone cheaper, you could have done it sooner, you could have made changes sooner than you did, and you could have also changed your service pricing, not only for investments, but for record keeping and for record keeping services as well, saying you paid too much for record keeping or other products inside your plan. So those are kind of the two basic claims. There's a lot more nuance to that, but that's the easy way of explaining it.
So how does a plan sponsor know whether they're paying too much and what can they do about it?
Well, I think that's the key thing. I think everybody hears lawsuit, lawsuit, lawsuit over and over in this world. And say, well, are we just up a creek without a paddle? And the answer is no. While plaintiffs can sue over anything, underneath it all, ERISA is all about process. And we can talk, if you want, Fred, about one recent decision that I think really highlights this.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because the plaintiffs basically like to say people are asleep at the switch, they didn't pay attention. But really, it's a game. I always use the phrase whack-a-mole, but it is a game of basically trying to make sure that as a plan sponsor or plan fiduciary running your plan, that you are actually reviewing things and evaluating and documenting the when and why you did things. And yes, the plaintiffs can disagree and do 20/20 hindsight, but that is how you actually protect yourself. Anybody can sue over anything. We all see that every day, but that's the way to go with. But I think the recent case helps. Do you want me to go into that a little bit?
Yes, please go into that.
Okay. There's the recent case involving Chevron Corporation. Chevron is a gigantic 401k plan. And Chevron had mutual funds at one point and moved to collective investment trust. Sort of the more sophisticated investments you see have been rising in utilization from all size plans, from big to small. And basically Chevron made changes, I believe it was in 2012, but the plaintiff said, why didn't you change sooner? And why didn't you change to different funds that were even cheaper than what you chose? What's fascinating about this decision, oh, and to add one more item, they also said your record keeping fee wasn't done right because until you changed it, it was charged on a percentage of assets rather than a per head charge. So three things: time you chose the investment, why didn't you move earlier? The amount involved in the investment, in terms of like which fund it was, and then your service provider, like your record keeper fees, how were they charged? The court, interestingly, and not all courts have gone this way, let's be honest amongst ourselves here. The court ruled that, look, the plaintiffs make these allegations that they say these facts, but they didn't give any real facts to back up their assertions that that Chevron failed to monitor, select, timely make decisions. In fact, Chevron was able to show, and in fact, the court even noted this, that Chevron had met regularly, that they had changed their investments. So it shows that they were monitoring, changed their fees, shows they were monitoring, and chosen. And the court said another great thing. It said, you don't always have to go cheapest. There's always reasons for going one fund or another. And they said that the plaintiffs hadn't pled any facts to actually say that there was a reason why it was bad that they went for the investments that they did. Now, the plaintiffs can refile again. They have until the 30th of September, and they may. But the key here is it's a court really looking and seeing and saying, okay, you can't just say everything is wrong and have nothing to back it up. And
Right.
that's why the backup as a plan sponsor makes such a difference. If you build the backup, you're in a better spot.
So we're talking about Chevron, which obviously has a lot of resources and people, but for small and mid-sized companies, practically speaking, last comment, how can a plan sponsor really make sure they're doing their duty and avoiding, the possibility of a lawsuit, but most importantly, do the right thing?
Right, and I think you say it best. It's most plan sponsors, when they're acting as a fiduciary, really should be focusing on what's right for participants and beneficiaries. And you never know how you can avoid a lawsuit, but the two go hand in hand. If I'm a smaller mid-sized sponsor, I think number one, you need to actually be reviewing. Let's start with the investments. You need to be reviewing them. Either you could do it yourself. If you have consultants you can rely on, you can look to them, because the consultants, they have databases. You can buy databases that show how they perform. There's a lot of tools out there. Document why you are keeping a fund or not keeping a fund. And if you have an investment policy statement, which most people do at this point, make sure it's flexible and at the same time doesn't lock you into removing funds that you may not want to remove. Keep it working in a very reasonable way, but document. Similarly, if you make a decision to change, choose the time in which you change and document why you're changing now rather than 6 months ago or 6 months ahead. There's no perfection here. You just need to have a why that's good to contemporaneously document. The last thing is, on your service providers, there is no wrong or right. The plaintiffs would have you believe everything should be a flat charge. But depending on the plans, I've had millions of discussions. If you are a smaller mid-sized plan, yourself or with a consultant, you should be saying, what are my right fees? Do I want to charge per head? Do I want to charge a percentage of assets? And document why you chose them. Those three basic, simple things that don't have to take a lot of your time, even if you're resource constrained, are a good starting point.
So you want to, if I could summarize, use a consultant or a plan advisor to help you, document the process, and probably benchmark your fees and your investments to make sure that you're making prudent decisions. Would that be it?
That's absolutely correct.
Very good. Well, thanks for your time, and we look forward to talking to you next month about our favorite subject, the rash of 401k lawsuits.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, David.